One day in August of 1995, a man called Foutanga Babani Sissoko walked into the head office of the Dubai Islamic Bank and asked for a loan to buy a car. The manager agreed, and Sissoko invited him for a dinner at his place. It was the prelude to one of the most audacious confidence tricks of all time. Over dinner, Sissoko made a claim. He told the bank manager, Mohammed Youb, that he had magic powers. With these powers, he could take a sum of money and double it. He invited his Emirate friend to come again and to bring some cash. Black magic, as known, is condemned by Islam as blasphemous. Even so, there is still a widespread belief in it, and Muhammad was taken in by the colorful and mysterious businessman from a remote village in Mali. When he arrived at Sissoko's house the next day, carrying his money, a man burst out of a room saying spirits had just attacked him. He warned Youb not to anger the spirits for fear his money could not be doubled. So Muhammad left his cash in the magic room and waited. He said he saw lights and smoke. He heard the voices of spirits. Then there was silence. The money had indeed doubled. Muhammad was delighted, and the heist could begin. He believed it was black magic, that Mr. Sissoko could double the money, says Alan Fine, a Miami attorney. The bank later asked to investigate the crime. So he would send money to Mr. Sissoko, the bank's money, and he expected it to come back double the amount. Between 1995 and 1998, Mohammed Youb made 183 transfers into Sissoko's accounts around the world. Sissoko was also running up big credit card bills in the millions, according to Fine, which Youb would settle on his behalf. In 1998, I was living in Dubai, and I heard rumors that the bank was in trouble. When a newspaper reported that the bank was having cash flow problems, crowds of people gathered outside waiting to withdraw their money. The Dubai authorities downplayed the crisis. They called it a little difficulty that did not lead to any financial loss, either in the bank's investment or depositors' accounts. But this wasn't true. The people who owned the bank took a huge hit. It was not covered by insurance, says Finn. The bank was saved because the government stepped in to help, but they gave up a lot of their equity in the bank for that to happen. And where was Foutanga Sissoko by this time? He was far away. One of the beauties of this scheme was that he did not need to be in Dubai to keep receiving money. In November of 1995, only weeks after putting on the magic display for Mohammed Youb, Sissoko visited another bank in New York and did much more than open an account. He walked into Citibank one day, no appointment, met a teller, and he ended up marrying her, saying Alan Finn. And there is reason to believe she made his relationship with Citibank more comfortable, and he ended up opening an account there, through which, from memory, I'm just going to say, more than $100 million was wire transfer into the United States. In fact, according to a case brought by the Dubai Islamic Bank against Citibank, more than $151 million were debited by Citibank from Deep's correspondent account without proper authorization, but the case was later dropped. Sissoko paid his new wife more than $500,000 for her help. I didn't know under what legal realm he married her, but he called her a wife, and she believed she was a wife, says Fine. She understood that there were many other wives, some from Mali, some from New York. With the bank's money rolling in, Sissoko could fulfill his dream of opening an airline for Africa. This was the birth of Air Dhabi, named after his village in Mali. But in July of 1996, Sissoko made a serious mistake as he tried to buy 2 helicopters dating from the Vietnam War for reasons that remains unclear. His explanation of why he wanted them was emergency air ambulance. But the helicopter he was looking at were pretty big helicopters. They were not the kind that you see running back and forth to hospitals and trauma centers in United States. They were much bigger than that, says Fine. Because they could be refitted as gunships, the helicopters needed a special export license. Sissoko's men tried to speed things up by offering a $30,000 bribe to a custom officer. Instead, they got themselves arrested, and Interpol issued a warrant for Sissoko's arrest too. He was caught in Geneva, where he did go on to open another bank account. Tom Spencer, a Miami lawyer who was asked to represent Sissoko, vividly remembers going to meet him in Geneva's prison. I talked to the prison warden. He asked me whether or not Sissoko was going to go to the United States, Spencer says. I said, well, we will see. And he said, well, please, delay it as long as possible. And I said, well, why? And he said, because he's flying in fantastic meals from Paris every night for us. And that was my first bizarre encounter with Babani Sissoko. Sissoko was quickly extradited to the United States, where he started to mobilize influential supporters. The readiness of diplomats to vouch for Sissoko shook the judge presiding over his bail hearing, and Tom Spencer was stunned when a former U.S. senator announced that he was joining Sissoko's defense team. Well, you have to ask yourself, why would anyone get involved for a foreign national who was non-apparent value to the United States? Says fine. I didn't know the answer to the question, but it was an interesting one to pose. The U.S. government wanted Sissoko held in custody, but he was billed for $20 million. That is 14.5 million pounds, a Florida record at the time. Then he went on a spending spree. He would come in and buy 2, 3 or 4 cars at the same time. The money was like wind. His defense team was rewarded with Mercedes or Jaguar cars, but that was just like the stats. Sissoko spent $500,000 in one jewelry store alone, fine recalls and hundreds of thousands in others. In one man's clothing store, he spent more than $150,000. He would come in and buy 2, 3, 4 cars at the same time, and come back another week and buy 2, 3, 4 cars at the same time. They calculates that he sold Sissoko between 30 and 40 cars in total. Sissoko became a Miami celebrity. He already had several wives, but that didn't stop him marrying more and housing them in some of the 23 apartments he rented in the city. Playboy is the right word to describe him because he's very elegant and handsome, and he dresses with great style. He blew a lot of money in Miami, says Sissoko's cousin, Makan Musa. Sissoko was always giving away large sums to good cause. His trail was approaching and he knew the value of good publicity. In one case, witnessed by his cousin, he gave £300,000 to a high school band that needed money to travel to New York for a Thanksgiving Day parade. Another of his defense lawyer, Professor H.T. Smith, remembered on Thursdays he would drive around giving money to homeless people. I was thinking, is this some modern day Robin Hood? Why would you steal money and give it away? It doesn't make any sense, he says. The Miami Herald did a story just after he left, and I don't want to exaggerate, but I think they said they could chronicle like $14 million he gave away. He was only here 10 months. That's over $1 million a month. Alan Finn took a more cynical view. So much of what he did was for image and for reputation, and to perpetuate a belief that he was a very powerful man and fabulously wealthy. He would give away money, but to my knowledge, it was never done in any way that he didn't get publicity for it. Despite this PR drive, when Sissoko's case came to court, he disregarded his lawyer's advice and pleaded guilty. Maybe he calculated that these would provoke a fewer questions about his finance. The sentence was 43 days in prison and $250,000 fine, paid of course by the Dubai Islamic Bank, though without its knowledge. After serving only half his sentence, he was given early release in return for a $1 million payment to a homeless shelter. The rest he was meant to serve under house arrest in Mali. Instead, he returned home to a hero's welcome. It was around this time that the Dubai Islamic Bank audit began to notice that something was wrong. Mohammed was getting nervous. Sissoko had stopped answering his calls. Finally, he confessed to a colleague who asked how much was missing. Too ashamed to say, Yobe wrote it on a scrap of paper. 890 million dirhams, equivalent to $242 million or 175 million pounds. He was found guilty of fraud and given 3 years in jail. It was rumored he was also forced to undergo an exorcism to cure him of his belief in black magic. Sissoko has never faced justice. In his absence, a Dubai court sentenced him to 3 years for fraud and practicing magic. Interpol issued an arrest warrant and he remained a wanted man. I found transcripts from other trials at which Sissoko failed to appear, including one in Paris. His lawyer claimed that he was a scapegoat for Ayobi's actions and the bank's money had gone elsewhere, but the court didn't swallow it and convicted him of money laundering. For 12 years, between 2002 and 2014, Sissoko was a member of parliament in Mali, which gave him immunity from prosecution. For the last 4 years, no longer an MP, he has been protected by the fact that Mali has no extradition treaty with any other country. The Dubai Islamic Bank, nonetheless, is still pursuing him through the courts to find people who might tell me about Sissoko. I tracked down his seamstress who remembered him fondly. The last time I saw him 2 or 3 years ago, I made him a suitcase of clothes. If he didn't give out presents, he wasn't happy. It is his style. He loves to give things to people, he said. The good thing about him is that when things are going well, you can expect a lot of presents from him. He likes to help people with their problems, he said. The bad thing, I can tell you a few. This is someone who always gives people hope, but instead of telling you the truth, he's just leading you on. In the market, goldsmiths whom had only praise for clients who would call and ask him to make presents for his friends. I also heard that he could be found living near his native village, Dabi, which had given it the same name to Sissoko's short-lived airline near Mali's border with Guinea and Senegal. We also found a house that fitted the description. Suddenly surrounded by armed guards, there he was, Babani Sissoko, in person, now perhaps 70 years old. He agreed to an interview. The atmosphere was edgy. He began telling me about his entry into the world. My name is Sissoko Foutanga Babani. You know, the day I was born, all the villages around here burned down. The villages went around shouting. The fire was everywhere. There used to be a lot of bushes. He then talked about his effort to rebuild the village, which began in 1985, and about the money he made. At one point, he had been worth $400 million, he said. Eventually, I asked about the $242 million he had received from a Dubai Islamic Bank. These 42 million, this is a slightly crazy story. The gentleman from the bank should explain how he lost all that money. I mean, the $242 million. Listen, how could that money have left the bank the way it did? That's the problem. It's not this man alone who authorized the transfer. When the bank transfers money, it is not just one person who does it. Several others have to do it. It was also pointed out to him that Mohammed had claimed at his trial that Sissoko had put him under a spell. The gentleman you're talking about, I have seen him and met him, he said. But the heist, he denied. The only contact I had with him was when I went to buy a car. The bank bought it for me and I repaid the loan. It was a Japanese car, had the controlled people by means of black magic. That he said, if a man had that kind of power, why would he work? If you have that kind of power, you can stay where you are and rob all the banks of the world. In the United States, France, Germany, everywhere, even here in Africa, you could rob all the banks you want. He was also asked if he was still rich. His answer was blunt. No, I am not rich any longer. I am poor. Defining Interpol, Sissoko has spent a remarkable 20 years on the run. Even if he has squandered all his money and can never leave Mali, he has never spent a day in jail for the black magic bank heist. Bringing us to the end of this extraordinary story. If you enjoy this, don't forget to like and drop a comment, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also do well to share this video with your friends and family. Thank you so much for watching this video on Frank Speaks, and hope to see you again.